That's the red button. That's the red light. So something's working. Hello and welcome to Australian Transformers Weekly, bringing you Transformers news from around the world. This is episode 162. We're recording live on Sunday, August 19th, 2018. On tonight's episode, we're going to talk briefly about packaging hoarding and keeping boxes when you probably shouldn't. We got more shots of Masterpiece Beast Wars Megatron and some information on the Bumblebee movie coming up. All that and a lot more coming up after this. Coming up in the same sentence, I've got the George Lucas art of writing scripts there. Hello, we're back after a week away. We'll get into why that happened in a minute, but we got the same crew back that was meant to be on last week. Max returning from South Australia. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty well, thank you. Just been a little while just because of basically everyone had crap on, and so we just been a few weeks to be able to make it on, and glad to be back.
Yep. And making his return, not so much as a guest now, but as the club's new vice president, Chris Turner from Queensland.
Oh. Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's good to be back.
Thanks for voting.
Do
it now.
Yeah, that's it. It's a little bit late now. It's power has been claimed. So coming from a very disturbingly windy Brisbane at the moment. Like in the last 2 hours, it's gone from dead still to it's like almost cyclonic out there at the moment. So I don't know what's going on, but if it is days, yeah, it's nice to be here, guys.
If I turn up dead somewhere, it's because Chris sent the Decepticons after me. Ultimate power.
Yeah, well, we saw how that turned out for Starscream, though. So
it's a hostile takeover club.
Yeah.
So for those that
we needed a Decepticon.
TCCA elections and nominations happened the last couple of weeks, and we only had the vice president position that was up for elections, and Chris, you won rather convincingly. So congratulations, sir. You are now the 2IC. You're my Starscream, or you're my Ironhide, I'll say, just to rub it in.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty full-on week for me because I was working the whole time. But no, I think a lot of the reason I came in strong at the end there was I think it worked to my advantage being Queensland rep last year because having all the meetups and everything as a rep, I had full support of the Queensland boys, and and also my replacement is Queensland rep Jared. He's basically the glue that holds the Queensland TCCA guys together. He's front and center for just every event we have. Every time there's any kind of meeting or whatever, he's the one running around organising everybody. He regularly donates his barbecue for our meetups. It's still sitting outside in my backyard at the moment. And yeah, so it's not only good to win the election, but by the same token, I think Jared's going to be a really good rep for the club as well, and he's quite deserving of it. He's pretty humble. I don't think he was 100% like wanting to be in the limelight, but I kind of pushed him into it, and and I think he's embracing it now. So so I think
nervous.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so if I'm your Starscream, Brad, he's my Starscream. So we're just going to have a long chain of betraying sub-commanders going down the TCCA.
Well, yeah, just
it's been...
Yeah, I'll just fill in a bit of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Queensland is the only state that is dominated by Decepticons. Every other state's got a Autobot, Autobot heavy with just the memberships. So you come in with the Decepticon campaign, and we definitely most of more Queensland members voted than the rest of the states. So you had your team behind you, and that took you to victory.
Yeah, and for any of them watching, thanks, guys. Cheers for your support, and yeah, hopefully I can do the job well, and we'll keep pushing forward and Queensland dominating once again.
Boo. Hey, the club's registered in Victoria, so we're number one.
I feel like just proportionally SA kind of beats you out a bit, surely.
All your effort at the toy fairs and at the Max have definitely got the South Australian memberships up from last year too, which is fantastic. And even Harry, what he's doing over in WA, we got a heap of WA members signed up as well. So
oh my god, yeah, everyone's just getting involved in doing stuff, and it's working out so well.
Yep. And we've always said
Southern. Oh, sorry, Brad, you go on, mate.
I was just going to say, we've always said you don't have to be, even if you're not a rep, if you're going to have an event, a party, or go out, even just go out and see a new film, connect with some of the other members in your area and Facebook, and go out and have it as a TCCA meetup. Take some photos and post it on the page.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say that one thing the southern states tend to have all over Queensland as well is just convention-wise and event-wise. You guys have always got something on. I think that's our biggest issue that we face here as a community is there's very few and far between events and conventions and that sort of thing. I think Supernova is probably the biggest one that we get every year. But even then, the Gold Coast Supernova usually dwarfs the Brisbane Supernova in terms of numbers and you know, and the stars that they get out there and stuff. So I think what we face in Queensland is we have to sort of make more of a communal effort. So if we want to meet up, trade bots, you know, talk club and all that sort of stuff, we have to get off our asses and actually, you know, rile each other up to go and meet up somewhere or whatever. And yeah, the last 4 months been in a small apartment in Coorparoo, which is a inner city Brisbane suburb. So yeah, so with Comic Con on the horizon here, I'm hoping that we can maybe generate something big for the actual TCCA there as well. So yeah,
well,
sort of looking forward to gearing up to that.
Yeah, that's the next step now, getting Comic Con Brisbane and Sydney booked and getting to them. They're the last 2 big conventions for the year that we've got to focus on now. But, yeah. All right. Ready to talk some Transformers?
As always.
As always?
Yes.
All right. I need to share. All right. Because we missed last week, Bot Shots last week winner Chris Marsh and his Masterpiece Soundwave with taking full advantage of the Coles Minis promotion. Before we get to the photo, holy shit, Coles Minis. That has just flooded my local Facebook sales marketplace and everything else. I think some people didn't realize when they first started hitting Facebook here, people were charging $30 each for them, thinking that they've spent $30 on groceries.
More, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of it. Sorry, I don't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't mean to cut in, but one of the TCCA members, Rob Kinleyside, I can never pronounce his last name. He collects some minis, and he's ended up with the whole set. You know, he's got the little case for him and stuff. And he regularly posts some of the ridiculous, Facebook marketplace where people apparently certain items are rarer than others, like your little Nutella and the little Vicks and stuff like that. And yeah, people are charging exorbitant prices, like upwards of $50, and yeah, it's crazy. So I mean, I've got a couple of them, but you know, it's a novelty for me. I love the fact that they scale pretty well with Transformers, but
I've got a bunch of them, but I just got them and sent them to Jason because he uses them for photos.
Yep.
Well, hasn't Bot Shots just blown up since the. I mean, I see a photo every day in the club,
Yeah.
on the group, with somebody using something with one of those little Coles minis. They're great for photos.
Yeah, the other day they had Magnus with the coffee open, damn it, open. I just,
Yeah, that was great.
yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah. And it's probably just a good thing here. Chris got in. Hard to see on a mobile device, but he's got one of the cassette bots in the baby seat there as well.
In the kids' seat, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Rumble, isn't it?
Well, it can be either Rumble or Frenzy. We're not going to go into that debate.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I can see.
It's Frenzy if you've
That
got
is
taste.
brilliant. Yeah.
But
I'm
yeah,
wondering where that little shopping trolley's from, because it's perfectly scaled.
you can get
It's
stuff like that from
brilliant.
Kmart. Kmart have that sort of
Oh,
little
right.
shopping trolleys and that. I haven't seen the bronze ones. I've seen the silver or the stainless steel ones there. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jason has one that he regularly uses for photos.
yeah, because
But
we discussed
that is,
this. Yeah, we discussed this many months ago. Like when Jason was first shopping, I went out to my local Kmart looking for same sort of smaller food items and small like doll furniture and that to start being a bit creative with bot shots, and never end up doing it myself. But I know Jason's been taking some great photos with it, and Chris has probably jumped on the not jumped on the bandwagon, but started the bandwagon by having this shot in last week's bot shots and just sort of getting the ball rolling.
And it was you know, as the podcasters are probably well aware, I regularly enter the bot shots, and when that one was running, that photo was one of the first. I think it was like the fourth to be posted on the thread, and within about an hour, it had 16 more likes than every other photo. Like it definitely was you know, it was a freight train in terms of popularity. It won very clearly by a wide margin, that one.
Yeah, but it was still good to see some other people still not just conceding and not posting up. I think Alvin Trinidad, again, one of the previous winners, he had another photo up. I think it was just Tarn doing that sort of.
Oh, yeah, and it was a great photo too.
Yeah, like there's some fantastic photos there. Some don't even get a like, and that's all I normally at the end of the week, if photos don't get a like, as long as it's not going to make a draw or make one win over the other, I'll go through and like every one anyway. Just to...
And now it's starting to spread because Jason's brought a whole bunch of them over to TF Nation. So
yeah, yep.
Yeah. Well, I think unofficially, there's definitely like quite a few honourable mentions with every week. There's always like one or two, because I often, like, even though I enter the competitions, I'll often vote for my favourite out of the other entries. And sometimes I'm actually torn. I'm like, oh, that's good, but that's really good as well. And yeah, but you know, as going by the rules, you can only vote for one. But sometimes some of them don't get as much likes as you'd hope they would, you know. But that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and that's like, well, now I leave the posts up. Once I got the winner, I'd take the photo and delete the post, because we've had, like last week, we had someone post on Monday for the previous week, and I'm like, it's over now. But I just leave it. People can go back and type in a week, and even now, like adding the links to the full week's photos in the run sheet here, and I'll probably start doing it on the website too, just so you can see what was entered in that week and have the links open to it, just so you can see what the competition was like.
Yeah, well, there is a. Sorry, I was just going to say, isn't there a section on the TCCA website with all the previous winners since the competition began?
Yeah, all the winners can be found over on the competition section of the transformerscca.com, where I post
probably pretty well up there.
Yeah, yep. So that's all the previous winners, but even just a link to the actual thread, where the bot shots thread, so you can see all the other photos that were entered. Normally, if there's one or two photos we want to talk about when we do the podcast on the Friday night, we'll bring up the post and sort of have a look at some of the other ones as well. But yeah, that was Chris Marsh last week, and this week, Bree Jerome has won with her son playing with some of his figures out in the driveway, and a bit of a wide assortment there too. We got some RID stuff, some movie stuff, even rescue bots as well. So
there's some. Yeah, those rescue bots, the big ones up the back there, I buy the rescue bots for my son, and I've never seen those before. They're awesome, those things. Yeah,
I wonder if
I
they're
know
imports.
you can get. Well, yeah, I know you can get the larger ones, but the larger ones I've seen, I think there's only a couple. There's like Blur and a few of the other characters, but they're actually non-transformable. But
Okay.
I had a closer look at those ones, and they do actually look like they transform.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting. But I think the reason I don't know whether I voted for this photo myself, and I think the reason it may have won is I think you'd agree because most of the DCCA are adult collectors. It's very rare to see what I would say transformers in their natural habitat. Um, I found it quite refreshing to see just a little kid with their collection, like that sort of buzz that you get from it that, pretty much started us all collecting Transformers. But
Well, it's a
yeah, I
figures
think
at
that's
their
really nice.
yeah, it's a figures at their target audience. It's not
Yeah,
it's not well we talked about before, but Arvin's is Tarn. Like it's not a collector with a
yeah,
collector's piece and someone that obviously
yeah,
knows something
exactly.
about photography. Um,
Yeah,
and it's sort of good to see the likes and people that win sort of drift from one theme to another. You haven't
yeah.
necessarily got go away. Thank you.
I always like what Arvin does with his stuff a lot of the time, where it doesn't look like an actual figure.
We'll
Like
talk
when
of
it's just
minis
Yeah.
before. So the minis are still finding their way in.
Yeah,
But that leads itself to the figure as well. Like
yeah,
last week, his winning post was I think the Titans Return Hardhead.
yeah.
Hardhead? No.
And he
Whatever it
won
was.
again before that with the Titans Return Skull Cruncher.
Mm.
Um, and that was a brilliant photo too because he had it in crocodile form, but it looked like he had actually taken it to some kind of swamp because it was
Or
like a
even a
little island
pool.
surrounded by marsh, or yeah, or a pond or something. But it was, yeah, he's got a brilliant grasp on photography. Um, but yeah, but I know what you're saying, Brad. I do like how
Yeah,
like one
there.
week a silly photo will win because it's funny.
Well, look at
The
that.
next week a really serious sort of cool looking photo will win, and then the week after it'll be a very sort of warm and family oriented photo. Or they do, as you say, they do tend to move towards totally different themes. And I guess it just lends itself to the nature of a competition. It's just a competition for cool photos.
Yeah, and even looking back here over the last few weeks, the winning, you got like Tyson Richards doing some comedic stuff, and then you've got Arvin's sort of 2 weeks in a row where he's had them good photos, and
Yeah.
then back to some funny stuff with Chris last week, and then Breeze shots this week. So it's and
Mm.
even just sort of going through like this week's post. Again, the minis are sort of making a bit of an appearance. You got some bots fighting on the shelf. Tyson's done some memes again. Alan Jones loves tucking his primes into bed, which he's got a child. I think it's funny. Both Alan and Simon in Melbourne, they're both either child's just come or a child's on the way, so they're sort of going into that whole new world of kids wear and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. But
Accessories. Yeah.
yeah,
And
but
if you
see,
see the
even
one I entered, not, I was just going to say not to draw limelight or anything, but I sort of played off the fact that because everyone was going with the Coles minis, I've got a few minis of my own, but they're not quite the. I thought I'd come at it from a different angle.
yeah. So yeah,
Giant
it's
dinosaur sometimes just needs to calm down a bit.
yeah.
Uh,
Fantastic to see, guys, and you'll be in the draw for. We've got a Legends class Cosmos for this week, for this month. That will be given away next week. At the end of, I'll have to check the calendar. We might have 2 more weeks left in August. We might go to 5. Some of these months go to 5. So, yeah, good work, guys. Now, getting to some news. we've talked a lot about Beast Wars MP Megatron. I've had a characteristic change of heart and have pre-ordered it now after dissing the price so much on previous episodes. Chris, I don't think we've had you on to discuss it. Which are you?
I
Are
was
you
there for
Beast Wars?
Dinobot.
Are you a Beast Wars Predacon
Yeah,
follower?
actually, as I almost exclusively collect Decepticons, I do actually. I have a fondness for Beast Wars, and I've got a couple of Beast Wars Predacons. I've got the Chug Deluxe Waspinator,
Mm-hmm.
and I also have the anniversary um, retool of the original Beast Wars Megatron, which is a great figure. It's a Voyager class, and it's basically just a blown up version of the original Megatron, but it's got a little bit more detail, and they've repainted it to be more cartoon accurate. Um, and they're the only Beast Wars figures that I have, but I don't know, like even with the price, I'm pretty tempted by this guy because it's it's almost unreal. Like it looks so much like the cartoon model, you know, in both beast mode and robot mode, that it's mind blowing to me. Like to me, it is like the pinnacle of where Transformers are at these days. Like they've done a fantastic job on this thing, and it's really hard to ignore. Like, yeah, the price thing, it is very steep. Isn't it the most expensive MP
Mm-hmm.
yet?
Yeah.
But I kind of look at it and think, yeah, but that's what you pay for quality of that level.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely does a lot
so,
more. We're going to get to Dinobot in a little while, but it definitely does a lot more beast mode than what Dinobot does. Just hiding
mm.
all the interior with panels. Max, have you talked Dinobot Megatron yet?
Megatron. Look, at the end of the day, it is. It looks like it could possibly be the best figure ever made in Transformers line. Like it looks like it could be that good, but it's also far and away the most expensive figure ever made.
Mm.
So
Mm.
at that price, I think it's like Toybot, who are usually cheaper than just about everyone else, has it at like 430. Just it's
Yeah.
ridiculous, and that's one of the cheapest
Mm.
prices around. Like there's no reason to be giving Takara that much money for this thing. Like it's more expensive
Mm.
than a bloody Flame Toys figure or a Hot Toys, all manner of uber
Well, it's
expensive
more
figures.
expensive.
It doesn't, and
It's more
certainly it looks
expensive
good.
than some of the big Trypticons and stuff, like the third party Titans. You know.
Yeah, you think about what lines have been characterized by being like really expensive, high end type stuff. This is more expensive than like any of those, but I don't know if it has the quality to go along with it. Like, it looks fantastic, don't get me wrong, but it just looks, a bit above the average masterpiece. It doesn't look like almost half of $1,000.
Mm. Yeah, and I think we discussed in an earlier podcast too the whole fact that there's probably going to be a KO of it that'll come out much like MP36, and how they, for the most part, seem to be doing some better things, improving joints and articulation. That after Nerdmania and sort of having a bit of a think about the collection and realizing I don't really have much nostalgia for G1 at all, and selling off some of my figures. This is it. This is numero uno for me. This is where my nostalgia is. If I don't have this in my collection, then there's no point having any other masterpiece.
And I think you're touching on a big reason that Takara can get away with charging such an exorbitant price. And we saw it with the Dinobot MP. It's because they know that people will buy it. People will grumble about it and people will rage about it. But they did about Dinobot, and lots of people bought Dinobot. I think
I feel like
they're quite clever and... Sorry, go on, mate.
I was going to say, I feel like they might back themselves into a corner, though, right? With how much bigger the third-party market is becoming nowadays. You look at things like the new MP Prime, right? There's 2 or 3 other third-party MP Primes that are going to be hitting. And if that thing comes out and it's got a fully featured robot mode, transformation and trailer and all that, and realistically, they would probably charge a similar amount for that because of how much you're going to pack into the box. And people probably, and with something like that, people are probably just going to go, well, I'll buy the third-party one. Right, or they'll wait for the knockoff.
Yeah, I think
Takara knows that they can do this, but I don't think that it's going to be something which they can maintain in the long term.
Yeah, like you do have a lot of the Takara Hasbro official only, but you've also got a lot of people out there that, like me when I started, if the figure looks good and how I want it to look, and it's cheaper, I'll go for the third party. It's why I've got Hellfire and Wrestle and not Masterpiece Grapple and Inferno. Same thing with Quake Wave and over Masterpiece Shockwave. I prefer to look better of the third party ones, and they're cheaper. But just going back to the price.
Sorry, go on, mate.
I was just going to say, going back to price a little bit, the same thing sort of happened with Ultra Magnus when it came out. That price was lifted a little bit. Dinobot was the same, and you've got it here as well, where you got some figures like this where you might only have one repaint out of it, or the repaint that they do out of it, like Cheetor, you got the black one that not even a quarter of the collectors probably won't buy unless they're an all-number MP collector. Like you might get the red T-Rex version of this, but again, you might only have a couple of hundred people actually buy it that have to buy it because the number.
The red T-Rex version, right? There's the red version. It'd be inaccurate on this mold, and there'd be 2 third-party versions coming out, which would provide an accurate alternative.
Yep.
Well, I guess there's something very particular about this particular MP, and that is okay. So in terms of my collection, I'd refer to say third-party masterpiece like DNA Susanoo, which is the third-party bludgeon, or the repaint DNA Arashi, which was the obvious repaint into Bonsaitron. They were quite expensive, but nobody else has done an MP bludgeon. Nobody else has done an MP Bonsaitron. And I think that would be part of the marketing strategy here, is that nobody's even thought of doing a Beast Wars Megatron.
I feel like
the fact that this particular MP has generated interest in the character again. And I think they do tend to rely on that in a marketing sense. Like before DNA released Susanoo, DNA just did upgrade kits for existing Hasbro and Takara products. But when they came out with Susanoo, they needed something big to come out with to enter the third-party masterpiece market. And they did it very wisely. They went, okay, Bludgeon's a popular character. He's a little bit of a cult character, but he's still popular in a lot of the collector circles. Let's come out with a character where there's basically no alternative. So if you're a fan of the character and they do a half-decent job, they've got a guaranteed market straight away. And I think that has a lot to do with pricing when it comes to even official releases like this. There's no competition for a Beast Wars Megatron at the moment, and that in itself is enough to sort of guarantee, however small a percentage of the collecting market,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also at a sort of price where Takara can probably confidently put it out and understand, all right, we might not sell as many units as we otherwise might, but we're going to make the money back because the figure is that expensive.
Yeah.
Have you also seen that he's a little low on the gimmicks from what I've seen, but I did think it was cool that you can remove the dinosaur parts and have him in his proto form that he appeared in the first episode of Beast Wars. It's nothing special, but I thought that was pretty cool. I am disappointed that he doesn't have the rubber ducky though.
Oh man,
he does have the toothbrush
more than
which is cool.
$400, they could include the bloody duck.
Mm, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah. No, once Dinobot sealed the deal for me as soon as I took that thing out of its packaging and and got to play around for a little bit. I was full on board for this.
look,
I'm very tempted.
Yeah. You say you haven't yet? You haven't put anything down on it?
I'm waiting for my tax return to come in. I'll see. I'll see how much money I got to play with at the end of the day. But if I find myself a little bit of disposable income, then I might very well do it. You also got to think of the fact that if you buy it and you're not happy with it, there's definitely some resale value in that as well.
I remember the first, MP36 just went straight up in price when it first hit. So
yeah, and even I haven't researched it, but it's probably a good 12 months before if there's going to be a KO before the KO comes out, so you're going to have a bit of time to play with it, and if you don't like it, you can resell it again before word of a KO comes out in the market. The bottom just drops out of the market. So Max, you're not adding this to your Christmas list?
God no, Christ! It's just
I can't. It's half a grand
in my mind for having a price like that. I'm sure it's going to be an incredible figure, but for $400, my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was even looking at the Prime One Studios version for I guess 2200, and just this one does enough for a quarter of the price. We'll get to it later.
Are you talking about that statue, Brad?
Yeah. We'll get to it.
That thing is unbelievable.
We'll get to it when we get to new acquisitions too, just with Dinobot and transforming him and everything else. But yes, he's got a bit of a backpack, but again, I don't pose my figures backwards. And from the front half, he looks pretty much on point anyway. There's not a lot of kibble or he looks straight up the robot mode. But yeah, moving on to another masterpiece that might be a little bit easier on the wallet. Masterpiece Wheeljack Plus. Anime colors. He's got the blue windows, which I thought was his only change, but a lot of the greens and black pinstriping that on the alt mode's been removed as well to make him more cartoon accurate in that regard. Chris, have you got the original Masterpiece Wheeljack?
No, I don't have any Autobots, man.
After I said it, I was like, that's probably a dumb question.
Yeah, I think the closest is I buy Autobots for my son, and he's got the Combiner Wars Deluxe Wheeljack, but that's about So yeah, I've really I've got to opt out of this one. I've got no comment on this, other than I will say I think it's good because to me MP collectors. I mean I mainly collect Chug, but I also have a few MPs and third-party masterpieces and stuff. And I think as far as the whole idea behind a good MP collection from my point of view is the G1 cartoon accuracy. And I think anything that adds to that, to an existing product to make it, more in line with the cartoon and make it look like more it's supposed to look like. I can't see why that's a bad thing for a collector and why you wouldn't be excited about it if you collected Autobots.
Because they should have done it to start with.
Max. When this figure first hit was sort of when they weren't quite sure, and I guess they still are almost, not quite sure what they were doing in terms of aesthetic for Masterpiece line, leaning towards toy, cartoon, in between. And so a lot of people weren't all that fond of the paint scheme that they initially used for Wheeljack. Just going for that more toy and realistic car look. But this, looks straight out of a cartoon. I think it's not my personal preference, just because there's not as much paint on there. In terms of just sheer accuracy, it's really impressive.
Yeah, and that was going to be the first thing I go to is I assume this is going to be the same price as the original release, if not a little bit more, because it's been a year or so. But they've essentially just saved a heap of money on the paint app department and going to make the put the same figure out. Like, there's no molding changes at all.
And probably bump up the price as well.
Yeah, yeah. You still get the Hypno device or whatever it's called.
Is there any new accessories for it?
No.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the Hypno device was only
It was an Amazon exclusive.
Yeah. So they're including. Well, it looks like they're including it with this release now too. So,
I think should give him that cannon that he uses in the cartoon, and when he goes to fire it, it blows up in his face. That'd be brilliant.
Because you get a lot of grumbles. People, oh, here we go. We got Wheeljack coming out. You got them going back to all these original Hisui cars and that, which engineering-wise were pretty good, and doing these little changes to them, and that's how they can afford to make figures like that Megatron and the one-off figures. Like we talked a couple of weeks ago about the MP Hound being revealed. Like that's another figure where you're not going to get any repaints out of it, unless there's some.
I think there was
there was
an e-hobby
thing. Yeah, there's a black one, isn't there? Isn't there a black hound
I'm not
somewhere?
sure about black, but
there's a really obscure Junkion from G1. His name's Detritus. Yeah, and he was a hound repaint. He was a brown repainted hound. Detritus or Detritus on it.
They put him in a comic recently as like a cameo.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the whole Megatron repaint thing. How many, apart from numbered collectors, how many people are going to get that repaint? I don't know if this is.
Some people might, just for the same sort of reason as, some people got stuff like what was the name of that Trax Redeco, the black one?
Oh, Loud Pedal, yeah.
Loud Pedal, yeah. They'll just get it for that because it's sort of representing a niche, sort of obscure part of Transformers history.
Yeah, but also
if they did a Detritus repaint, I would get it because he was the only Decepticon Junkion.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole gimmick of his character is Wreck-Gar and the Junkions in the movie and in the cartoon. They were from going by Transformers lore, they were from one tribe of Junkions, and Detritus, or Detritus, however you say his name, he was from another tribe, and he was a rival of Wreck-Gar's. So when they sort of sided up with the Autobots, he joined the Decepticons. And as we've seen with the other Junkions, they're all the same sort of Wreck-Gar motorbike type, but I thought it was interesting, even though he was just a hound repaint, that he was something different. He was a big sort of Jeep truck thing. Mm. So I'd get him, yeah, just because, let's face it, there is that's one of the main reasons I don't really collect a lot of MPs, is because the MP line is incredibly Autobot heavy. There's very few Decepticons, and other than the main sort of characters, and I think it'd be nice to see some obscure. Even if they were repaints, some obscure.
I think that's in large part due to like how many Autobot molds there are that they can just repaint.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Characters in the cartoon. There's far more Autobots and Decepticons in the cartoon.
Yeah, true.
Mm.
And the Autobots, well, you got the licensing issues that are stopping some from being made, but most of the Decepticons don't have licensing issues, so they can make them and get them out there.
Yeah, the generic tanks and accessories and stuff. Yeah. Also, there's the fact that the third-party market has jumped all over that. The gaps in the MP line, and I mean, there's a lot of when you look at like MMC and like oh god, name any of them. I mean, look at how many third-party Devastators and stuff there are. They've pretty much cornered the Decepticon collectors market. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, MP collectors, official MP, are quite happy to have the bulk of them being Autobots anyway.
Max, are you going to get this?
No, not really. I I mean, I do like the sort of simplistic cartoon color scheme, but I also just really like the original version just because of how well done the paint is. So I'll be sticking with this.
I can't recall if there were any real mold or QC issues with the original one, so it's one thing you got to look at too when they start doing remolds and redos, how the original molds hold up.
I always found it to be one of the stronger of the earlier MPs. It wasn't like a lot of the figures like Bumblebee and Shockwave, they have like that one thing that really sets them apart. He didn't really have something specific about him that made him like a unique and like especially incredible figure. He was just really solid.
I don't know why every one of these photos have him squatting. I don't know if it's just so they can get a bit of ankle articulation going or what, but it looks like the figure's pretty poor to pose. A lot more than it's not. But
yeah, he seems to be just doing that duck squat in every photo.
Yeah.
He does have extraordinarily big feet, so I guess that's part of it.
Yeah, well, that's the whole transformation, having the front become the feet there. And yeah, no, I've got the original Wheeljack. I've got no interest in doubling up for this. There's no need for it for me. Something else that I won't be doubling up on. Encore Big Convoy. Got some official images now of from Amazon Japan. Another Beast Wars character. Being a Maximal.
He's the Maximal leader from Beast Wars Neo, which was the third Beast Wars and the Japan only one.
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, after Beast Wars in the Western world, they jumped ahead to Beast Machines, but in between that time, Japan came out with Beast Wars Second, which was back to the animated cartoon format. And that was your one with Lio Convoy and Galvatron and all that sort of stuff. And then the sequel to that was Beast Wars Neo. And in that, at the end of, at the beginning, basically Lio Convoy passes the Matrix to this guy who's Big Convoy. Really imaginative names there from Japan. But he, I am a big fan of the Japanese Beast Wars cartoons. And although a lot of people don't know a lot about the characters because it's very hard to find accurately translated versions of the cartoons, Big Convoy was awesome. I do prefer Lio Convoy just because he was basically the maximal equivalent to Wolverine in terms of attitude and personality and fighting style. And Big Convoy was the big bruiser, and he has, as you can see in the photos there, his trunk in mammoth mode, that actually becomes what he calls his, imaginatively enough, big cannon. And when he shoots the big cannon, it's a very Gundam style, like Dragon Ball Z end of the world blast that annihilates everything in its path. But
does it take 6 episodes to power up?
It's getting that way, but I think I really like the character because of the fact that the Japanese characters always played to their strengths, and even though he was the maximal leader and he was a matrix bearer, he's kind of a big oaf and very fitting for his mammoth form, and he was kind of like, just get out of my way or I'll step on you type guy. And I mean, considering how old it is, the toy is amazing. And I'm really hoping that with this reissue, we get to see some of the repaints that we saw. Like they had the I believe it was a TF Con exclusive Ultra Mammoth, which was the Ultra Magnus colored one. And the one that became very popular off the shelves was, and I wish I had one, was the Universe Nemesis Prime, which of course was the black and red repaint of it. So yeah, fingers crossed that they do those guys as well.
They're reissuing the Ultra Mammoth as well, aren't they? But they haven't solicited it yet.
Yeah, which to me, that's hopeful that they will do the Nemesis Prime repaint as well, because we all know repaints are their bread and butter. So
yeah. Chris, do you have the original one?
No.
No.
He was one of those toys where I tried to track down this is before I joined the TCCA, in the dark days of eBay. I tried to hunt down a Universe Nemesis Prime. But even back then, and this is probably like 6 years ago or something, um, that Black Nemesis Prime Universe repaint of this figure was upwards of $100 and something just to get your hands on. So I've struggled to find one for a decent price, and I never got one. So
Yeah.
here's hoping we get a much more fairly priced reissue of it.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen what the prices they're putting on the reissue G1 stuff in America, but they must be pretty good retail prices and not something you'd find like on eBay. But and getting to the bot itself, like getting towards the end of Beast Wars and that, where I think some of the engineering that involved in transformations and that they were sort of getting to some great designs, great little tricks and that too with engineering. So I've heard a lot of praise for this figure.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary looking figure. Like, it's so imposing.
Sorry.
You're right, mate. What were you going to say?
I think this was like this is the first figure that they ever put out which had a dedicated matrix chamber as well.
Yeah, they sort of very interestingly continued the original Beast Wars story. Because you know how I don't know if you've seen Beast Wars Max, but Optimus Primal gets the Matrix from the original Optimus, and after Beast Wars ended, I think there was some comics in between, and sort of it was suggested at the beginning of Beast Wars Second that Optimus Primal became the Maximal Prime. And at the end of his time, he passed the Matrix to Lio Convoy, who was his successor, who passed the Matrix to Big Convoy here. So they sort of continue, even in the Beast Wars, they continue that succession of primes. What I found really interesting about it was that they did one of those feature-length movies for Beast Wars Second, and the Predacons resurrect this Decepticon Titan. And to defeat this Titan, which was this all-powerful, monstrous sort of Decepticon thing from the past, Lio Convoy actually uses the Matrix to resurrect Optimus Primal, and they team up together. And I think they use both their timelines, matrices, in this big blast ends up destroying the Titan. So yeah, it's very hard to make out though, because like I said, there's very badly translated versions floating around, and I don't think they've ever done a proper dub or a very accurate translation of it at all. So
yeah, there's a whole lot of that older, sort of Japanese G1 stuff, and I guess Beast Wars as well, but really hasn't made its way into the West. It's a shame.
Yeah.
At least, from what I heard about it from you, when you talk about it and from other people talking about it, it says that they have a lot of really good storytelling going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in the Beast Wars cartoons in Japan were very much done in the same way that, say, the Headmasters cartoon was done for G1, and then Victory and cartoons like that. It very much was a very elaborate extension of the original universe, just done in a very Japanese style. And some great characters too, like in the Japanese Beast Wars cartoons. Obviously, you've got, what you see there, Big Convoy being a big mammoth. They got ridiculous with it after a while. There was a Maximal that turned into a giraffe. There was a rabbit. There was a Tasmanian devil.
Armadillo.
Lots of cool stuff. Yeah, armadillo.
There's a crab or a lobster or something.
It's all crazy stuff.
Yeah. Interestingly, for the in Beast Wars Second, they got a bit lazy with the Predacons though, and most of the Predacons are literally G1 Machine Wars repaints, and and one of the main villains is called Megastorm, and he is literally G2 Megatron with the purple and green tank. So, who later turns into Gigastorm, which is literally Triptychon with a horn. So
Yeah.
they got a little bit lazy there with the bad guys.
No, you get that from time to time.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Nanomake. CR01, so I'm guessing this is their first attempt at a... does this thing transform?
Nah, it's just a straight up action figure.
Okay, it's
a first outing.
Yeah, it's sort of a fully detailed G1 and movie hybrid Optimus Prime, looking like a straight up KO of the MP10 trailer. But the figure itself, do you know how big it is? I've only got a photo here.
I think it's about MP10 size.
Yeah, that's not a bad size. It's got some fantastic detail to it.
I think the idea behind this figure is basically just make a movie style G1 Optimus Prime.
Yeah, yeah. We've talked before with the XM Studios Optimus Prime they were doing there in the big statue, and that thing too being just like a movie-esque version of G1 Prime and how fantastic it looks. Prime 1 have done their own version as well, and I think this thing sort of looks fantastic as well. And being that smaller size, I'd love to see further on down the line how much it's going to be, because I'd love to have this.
Yeah, it's an amazing looking figure.
Very comic book style, I reckon.
Yeah, it's sort of not quite comic book. I guess there's a few different ways that people have gone after this sort of idea. So, these guys have done it. XM Studios, like you said, Don Figueroa, also, like, for comics in a good while, he sort of characterized that art style as being, realistic.
I think he pretty much was responsible for the whole style of, say, MMC's Feral Rex, because if you look at Don's Predaking artwork in the comics, it's Feral Rex, and that's why you've got such a big difference between, say, the Hasbro Predaking that's just come out, which looks very G1, and, say, a third-party MMC Feral Rex, which just looks straight up that sort of almost borderline manga style. The exaggerated features and the sharp angles and stuff. And I see a lot of that in this Prime. It looks very like if you say pick up one of the old Dreamwave comics or something, like that's straight up what Prime looks like in the comics. He's got that more almost humanoid torso and humanoid proportions, as opposed to the much more traditional G1 blockiness of a truck with legs, But I think it's a very interesting take on it.
Yeah, it's something that we haven't really... It's definitely different to a lot of third-party stuff we've seen before, which I kind of like. Because often with third-party stuff, it's, just everyone takes a crack at doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Or, they all do the same sort of MP style figure, and that's what every third-party does. Whereas this is like...
Don't you always find that tiresome, though? I mean,
yeah,
every time I see a new Optimus, whether it's official or third party, or every time I see a new Devastator, whether it's official or third party, it doesn't matter how cool it is. I'm kind of like, yeah, great, but like, that one was cool, that one was cool, that one was cool. Like, it gets to a point where it's like, I understand the popularity of the characters, but I mean, how many Optimus Primes and Devastators are they expecting us to buy, or Dinobots?
How many
you know what I mean?
Like, at what point do you stop?
I always feel like I always feel like if I was one of these companies and involved with their marketing in some respect, I'd always think, isn't this a gamble? Aren't we rolling the dice a bit by doing another Optimus? Like, for the collector out there who is an Optimus fanatic, by now they must have, well over 60 Optimus Primes sitting in their cabinet. Do they really need another one or want one? But
oh yeah, they do.
I don't know,
but that might be 0.111% of the collecting base as well. Like
Yeah.
there are some collectors out there that only go for a certain character, and Prime being Prime, a few people do. But just looking, I'm sort of thinking now that MP10 trailer is just there for scale, and it's not actually what comes with it, because I don't see why they'd give you a trailer if the truck can't transform to go in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't think that's not their trailer that they're putting out. It's just
just there for scale.
Yeah.
you can click through, and there's a few more images as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There we go. It's super detailed.
Yeah. Well, that's straight up the MP trailer, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's just the. It's just the trailer.
He's having his bum adjusted in that one.
Of course, he's got to have a matrix chamber, which is odd because the first
different
photo,
looking matrix.
Yeah, but I don't think the matrix is in there, because it looks like there's more of a matrix through the windows than what's there. Like you can't see the handles unless that's on the inside the window.
I thought that crystal.
See there, you can see
might have been the matrix.
You can see the handles there in the windows.
Yeah.
But he comes with his Energon axe as an axe, and not just a plug into the hand.
Yeah, it looks like more of a barbarian style.
I don't know. It looks a bit rectangular, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, they haven't put as much thought into the axe.
I worry slightly with this about how articulated it's going to be, just because you don't see him doing all that much in these photos, other than just slightly different variants on standing around.
Yeah, maybe if that's your kind of thing.
Again, it'll just come down to price.
I just think I'm a bit, and it's not, it's not just Optimus. He is a critical example of it, because he's by far the most popular Transformers character in existence. But I just feel a bit exhausted by repeat releases of certain characters. I think I think third parties picking up on this, but for me, if you on any level of fandom in Transformers, you immediately realize that there is so many characters in this universe, like more than people would ever believe. And every day, I discover an obscure character that I either never knew about, or I forgot about, or is a different version of a character from another universe. And I mean, yeah, to me, I want to see more of that. I want to see, I mean, even my favorite character, Bludgeon, he's only ever appeared in the comics and the toy releases. We've never seen Bludgeon in any cartoons or movies, obviously. And yeah, there's characters like that are just awesome characters, and there's obviously a wealth of creativity and collectability there. But they just don't seem to be. I think they're falling back on this easy idea of, well, everyone loves Optimus. Let's make another Optimus. Let's make this version of Optimus. Let's do an Optimus that has that. It's the whole Lisa Lionheart new hat thing for me. But now it's got a new hat.
This year we put a 12 on the box, but it's at least going back to some of the photos we've seen from TFCon and that, it seems like there's a lot more third-party companies that are moving away from just the G1 usual suspects and doing their own figures and that. So that there is, while some companies will, like Fan Toys and that, will still keep on doing the G1 versions of characters, whether they have an MP stand-in already or not. But there's a lot of other companies are doing other figures, and it is giving collectors sort of a lot better choice, and bringing some of those unknown characters into the fold. Like going on to their next story, Magtoys is doing the Cross Dimensions line, and they've got a Buster Stealth Wing, which is an alternate color of Jetfire.
This is just sort of out there, and I love it. Like the Cross Dimension stuff.
Yeah.
It's been great so far. Just these crazy designs of classic characters, and sort of a bit more dynamic and a bit more posable. And it's on there, like, this is like one of our biggest departures yet, and they're putting Jetfire in friggin' Dan Cougar colors as well.
Mm. But it looks aesthetically, it almost looks like something from, say, Warhammer 40,000 or something. Like I really like how unique it is. It stands out in a way that I haven't seen a figure stand out for a while. It kind of looks like a Seeker. It kind of looks like a movie figure, but kind of looks like something from Cybertron, but unlike any of those things, and that's, yeah, it's definitely got a lot of appeal.
Yeah, well, it could have been something that was just added to the movie line, like the All Spark series or something. Just another sort of Earth-looking alt mode. Maybe something from the Four Cybertron line that was a Wave 4 or 5 figure that never come out that they just threw in Dark of the Moon or something like Warhammer, or Skyhammer.
Yeah, I get a lot of Warhammer 40K from that alt mode. It looks very much like one of the gunships that the Space Marines fly around in or something.
Yeah.
Which is very unique for the Transformers universe. Yeah, because they tend to either fall into the traditional vehicles or something a bit crazy like Gundam style or whatever, but very rarely do they go for something like that.
Yeah, it's not a human vehicle, but it's not like a Cybertronian vehicle. It's like, it looks like like a futuristic thing from, like, I don't know, Star Wars or such.
Like an attack helicopter without the blades or something.
Yeah, and I love how clean it looks in the alt mode as well. Because there's that surface across the top.
Yeah, and you could take those cannons off the back of it and it could be the bloody, whatever they call them in Avengers.
Oh, that's kind of like a Quinjet, eh?
Yeah.
I think he's, at least color-wise, he looks quite a lot like Sky Shadow, which is cool.
Yeah, so people are saying, I don't know, a lot of people are saying like Black Shadow inspired, and some people are saying Dan Cougar inspired. I'm sort of leaning towards the latter because, like, obviously, it seems more likely that they do a Black Shadow inspired redeco, but the thing is that if they were going to do a Black Shadow, then why wouldn't they just make it their own, like that its own figure, and then probably fit in a Thunderwing out of that mold as well? As opposed to this way, you can put out a regular Jetfire and also just do an homage to a separate character too.
Yeah, well, I think it might even be a nod to the fact that I've only seen artwork of it, but going by G1 Jetfire's comic storyline, he was a Decepticon, and he was mates with Starscream, and when Starscream started getting a bit batty and killing people he shouldn't be killing and stuff, that's when he went and joined the Autobots. But that was sort of only briefly mentioned in conversations and stuff, so maybe it's an interpretation of that was his Decepticon color scheme, because the artwork I've seen generally just has a purple Decepticon colored Jetfire, but
there's a lot of
who knows?
ways you could take inspiration from. I mean, if I chuck on my screen share, I see. So this is what I'm thinking it might be homaging this Dan Cougar thing. You can see that. This is like a classic.
I can't see it yet.
On my screen there.
No, you've got to share screen.
Oh, is it not? Oh, it didn't work.
Yeah.
There we go. So this thing.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those
pretty cool.
Classic super robot type things from Japan.
Yeah. Like Gyogar and all that. Yeah, like that looks really cool.
And then companies have homaged those, like that sort of stuff in the past. I don't know, like a lot of Brave stuff is actually built off of Transformers. So there's sort of a precedent there for a homage to Dan Cougar.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, even if it's up for debate as to who it more looks like or who it's supposed to be, it's that unique that, like, you know,
It's just,
who cares? It'd just look cool sitting on your shelf. It doesn't really matter who it
it
is.
is also
You
just
could
a
say it's
gorgeous
just
looking
some
Jetfire.
badass seeker. Yeah. But yeah, looks very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Could
we've
also
talked.
be a
Very
sort of
interested to see how that develops.
movie homage as well.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, we've talked before about buying bots like this that just look fantastic. They might not have any history or canon or any relation to
Yeah.
any of the cartoons or movies, but just a great looking figure and something
Yeah.
you want to have in your collection.
Yeah, it's sort of when collecting becomes less about being a sort of less about uh, pertaining to a franchise that you like, and more related to just being a hobby.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Moving on, we've had some information that come out about Cyberverse over the last couple of weeks, and we're starting to see some footage from the cartoon as well. Like they've played the introduction and some other clips from Cyberverse since SDCC happened. Chris, you said you're buying a lot of stuff for your young fellow. Have you sat him down and showed him any of the Cyberverse stuff yet?
Yeah, and I think I've an interesting take on that. So I've always been, even though a lot of adults have been bent out of shape about the fact that things like RID and rescue bots, which confuses me because that was clearly aimed at toddlers, that show, tend
It's
to
called
have poor
Rescue Bots.
animation or yeah, exactly. But I've always been quite a fan. I think if you sit down with a toddler and watch Rescue Bots, it is actually an amazingly well written and well structured show, and the animation is completely suitable for its target demographic. And Robots in Disguise copped a lot of flack because it was technically the successor to Transformers Prime, which was much more dark and aimed at late teens, young adults. Um, but I did really like RID because I found the animation was fantastic in RID, and some of the character design was really cool, a really natural progression from Prime. But in all honesty, I watched the little preview they put out for Cyberverse with the young fella. It generated very little interest from him. I don't think he found anything new from it as ever before with RID or rescue bots. Um, I think, I mean, putting it into the same category as child-oriented Transformers shows like RID and Rescue Bots, um, I find that even considering that, I'm really unimpressed by the animation in this. It's very strange. If you look at Windblade's face,
It's
her
low budget.
eyes take up, yeah, her eyes take up 90% of her face, and I don't think that's anything to do. It's really strange when you see it in motion because
Same
budget
thing with
aside, it's the design to me that really doesn't appeal. Everything seems to be disproportionate, and like things are bigger than they should be, and other things are smaller than they should be, and the designs themselves are very clunky. And when you actually look at some of the toy lines coming out parallel to this, like I really like the look of that Shockwave that's on the shelves at the moment. And there's a few other characters that have piqued my interest. The Megatron that they've got out looks really cool, but it doesn't seem like they're very closely modeled from the animation, given this little short that we've seen, because that Seeker that comes down and attacks Windblade and Bumblebee in the short bit that we see, it just looks awful. The face is so small,
yeah, and if you
and
look at
yeah,
his
I don't know.
arms aren't connected to his torso as well.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah,
so it's just, and the thing is, he doesn't speak either. Like
no,
they
he
said,
just grunts, and
yeah,
yeah,
like this is Thundercracker. Like according to the cast list things, like
yeah,
it's just nothing to him.
yeah.
And then
There's
of
no
course
definition of character or
just a generic desert where they don't have to budget a background or anything.
mm,
I look, I initially was kind of optimistic of this show when they showed the initial
so was
character
I. Yep.
designs, and then that footage that came out from SDCC where it looked like they were going to take sort of an IDW inspiration for Megatron. But then after seeing this further footage, not too hopeful, to be honest.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, I've even on the podcasts of the past, when it comes to things like other low budget speculative series like the Prime Wars trilogy and stuff. I've always been quite supportive of new directions, and I've always usually been champion of the underdog in terms of a lot of the fandom has had a backlash against a certain series that I thought was fine. I remember when RID first came out, everybody hated it, and I was like, no, for what it is, it's good. I like it. But this, I have to take a really critical standpoint, just because, yes, I know it's only a short amount of footage that we've seen. It's what they're teasing us with. It's what they want to present as the series for us.
Yeah, this is
And take that critical standpoint in comparison to, yes, it's aimed at children. Yes, it's on a low budget. Yes, it's supposed to be very basic and simple. But so were other shows that we've seen in the past that did this much better from what I've seen. And I'm not impressed. It actually looks, I'm going to say the T word, it looks terrible to me.
I won't say terrible yet, because there's been a bit of footage which looked okay, but yeah, I'm not optimistic at all right now. I'll give it a crack for the first few episodes, just see if it can, see if I can get something out of it. But right now, it's not looking too good.
Yeah.
Did you notice Bumblebee only speaks through his radio, like in the movies again? I'm getting a little bit sick of that.
Yeah, and
I'm over that little gimmick.
Quotes as well.
What was that? Go again, Max.
They made up their own radio quotes to play for Bumblebee.
Yeah, they're not real excerpts from the radio. They're just Bumblebee talking in a radio fashion, and yeah, I don't know. I was never really big on that whole idea to begin with, and I'm kind of getting a bit sick of it being resurrected. So.
The character of any sort of character, basically, he can't talk, because he can't talk properly. You can't actually develop the character in any meaningful way. It's like,
and it's also, they seem to be changing their mind about that aspect quite a lot. Like even in the live action movies, his voice will come back, and then when we see him again, he's back to speaking through the radio. They can't decide whether they want him to have that gimmick or not. And even in things like in Transformers Prime, he didn't speak through the radio, but he spoke with beeps and clicks and sort of, what do they call it, binary, But at the end of that series, he got his voice back. And then in the follow-up series RID, he just speaks with his normal voice, which to me, it just gave his character so much more depth. He basically became the new leader in RID because of that. Like he could actually talk and have character.
Yeah, because it came in conjunction with like him stepping up to be a leader and maturing. So he actually had character to it. Whereas with this whole talking through the radio thing, it doesn't give character, and I don't know who actually wants it. Like, who's... Who wants it?
What's his appeal?
Why is it there? No one actually likes it. Like, most people don't hate it, but
marketing would be against you there. I'm sure they've showed it to someone and, oh, that's cool. Someone said
they would have showed it to a focus group for I don't know.
But I honestly feel the same way about Windblade, full stop. I know that she was a fan-created character, and I know that somebody must really like her because she's in everything. But I can't stand her character, and I feel like she really detracts from every series she's appeared in. And it seems like, once again, they've just...
She's like, where she was first introduced, she is really solid. Like, she's a complex character, and she's generally pretty likable. And you can enjoy stories of it in. But in RID and in the Prime Wars trilogy and probably in this as well, she's just not enjoyable on screen. Because they're like,
and at least in RID, they were very sparing with her. She appeared on special boss fights and stuff, and then she'd piss off again. Whereas Yeah, I think as much as I really enjoyed the Prime Wars trilogy, I think it could have done without her. Um, you know what I mean? And the fact that they had to insert her into every single situation, and she was OP to the level where she's slapping Megatron around, and every time some big bad character comes stomp down that even Prime and that are worried about, she has to jump in and have a go, and like it just yeah. I got to the point where I was just like, can somebody piss her off? I'm over her, like
Yeah, it's like it's the fan
So,
voted character, so obviously the fans are going to like it no matter what. But it's like, no, we
mm,
still want a decent character. You look at Drift, right, is all over the place nowadays. He was the first fan voted
yeah,
character. And people really like Drift because when he shows up, he's generally pretty likable. You know,
yeah,
he's not, and he's also not the center of absolutely everything, right? It's like, yeah,
yeah.
he's in the cartoon and he's in the movies, but he's not the only thing. There's
Yeah, and
room
I
for other
think with
characters
Drift,
around him.
his original fan voted character in the comics is so different. He was basically to the Autobots what Bludgeon is to the Decepticons, just that sort of badass samurai. He's sort of smooth, he's smart, he knows what he's doing, turns into a cool car, very Autobot-like in that respect. But even with Drift, in RID and in the movies, they've sort of turned him into a cliche. Like he's Japan bot
Yeah, it's just like,
01, like.
But at least there's some
I
range
mean,
and some diversity between each iteration of the character, though. Whereas
yeah,
with Windblade, she's
yeah,
been
you're
exactly
right. Yeah,
the same in each. Like even just to have a Windblade figure on your shelf, like I brought the RID one because I thought that was the better looking one. You've got the two generations releases now, and now this one here. Like it's all that one RID one can cover the whole 5 or 6 different series that she's been in.
yeah. She
And it
doesn't look
should,
a whole lot different. Yeah, you're right.
and that's not how you sell toys. That's the reason Bumblebee and Prime come back
Yeah,
every single wave and every single toy line is because they change it up, and whether there's a cartoon to back it or
yeah.
not.
Make them look
Whereas,
different.
yeah,
Yeah,
and even it's not pictured here, but there's
yeah,
like Grimlock and Megatron and all that are different.
yeah, same deal with Drift.
yeah,
He's between his what 3 different incarnations. He's always looked different, and even then,
Yeah,
he looked different between the 2 movies. And he's had a whole bunch of
yeah,
different looks within the comics. Like that keeps
yeah,
people engaged. No one wants the same Windblade design for the 5th time.
well, no one's going to keep buying them, but even
mm,
cartoon aside, whatever the cartoon's going to be, we'll find out in a little bit how it's going to go. But even the figures are getting out here in Australia, and I was in at the local Target yesterday, and they had I think their leader size, the Megatron and the Optimus Prime, and they don't look too bad. The figures, they look like good
yeah.
sturdy
That's what
figures.
I was saying earlier. The toy line that's come out. Some of them don't look all that great, but I've noticed a couple of them that I wouldn't mind for my collection, regardless of how good or terrible the cartoon is. Like that Shockwave that
Yeah,
turns into
Apparently,
the spider tank.
Shockwave's like the
I think that
only
looks
good one
cool.
so far. Like they're
Yeah, I
last screen
did.
at the same
I
price.
did see. I
Like,
think there's one of the Megatrons because they've done a couple of different classes of Megatrons for Cyberverse, and I
yeah,
do remember looking at one of the Megatrons and going, "Wow, that's like a nice G1 chug scaled Megatron."
I
yeah.
think the thing is that
So yeah, we'll
Shockwave,
see how we go.
the Shockwave that they did
Mm.
is the only figure in the entire line so far that has both elbows and knees.
Oh
So
wow, yeah. Well, I'm reserving judgment for some of the Seekers I'll be bringing out because they are in the cartoon. They do have an acid storm listed in the
Yeah.
cast, and he's my favorite Seeker. So depending on how good the figure is, I wouldn't mind another acid storm.
yeah, and then I think it was Acid
But
Storm and
yeah,
Slipstream, and then in some of the footage, it looked like there was like in the footage from SDCC, it looked like there was friggin' Red Wing, and in another clip we've seen, which seems to set after this one, they had a purple Seeker,
mm.
but it wasn't Skywarp. It was because usually he has a black on him, where it was 2 tones of purple. So looks like they had Hot Link in there as well, like
Yeah,
super obscure
yeah,
stuff.
either Hotlink or yeah, yeah, that's it.
And beyond the
All right,
Seekers,
so we've made a decision about the Cyberverse trailer. Doesn't look good, but
We're excited to see what comes out of it.
yeah, that's
haven't
it.
lost hope, but nearly there.
But even like getting those leader class figures for $60, where normally your leaders are 90, 89, 90, it's just the price point's a little bit better on these figures, where I might actually dip my toe in and grab a couple for my son.
I'm keen to get one of those, as I said, one of those Megatrons in here and have a good look.
Yeah. Now, moving last story here, we got a quick little bit of news from the Bumblebee movie that's coming up. Apparently, we're going to have some scenes on Cybertron. Or the Cybertron's going to make an appearance in the film, so...
Yeah. Well, I think the rumors are they have like an opening scene on Cybertron with like really sort of G1 styled characters. So it says like
I've been hearing similar rumors about almost every live action movie that's come out, so I'll reserve judgment.
But from this one,
they said
no already that we're getting G1 style characters.
Yeah, I remember when Dark of the Moon came out, they were like, oh, there's going to be like the War for Cybertron's going to be a big part of it. And there was like maybe a 3-second scene in a flashback of like some fighting on Cybertron.
Well,
so
of course we've had
I don't know. I've just learned not to get my hopes up.
Yeah, we've had it before, but it's all been like just generic grey, you know.
And I'm worried about with these press releases for Bumblebee, what their definition of G1 is, because if they are in fact having that as Blitzwing and not Starscream,
it's not Blitzwing.
and it's not just a big con.
Yeah,
well, I personally believe that it's a very clever marketing thing. I think it's definitely Starscream, and they've created the Blitzwing controversy to sort of generate interest in the movie and sort of lead people astray. But let's say, for argument's sake, they're sticking to it and saying, no, it's Blitzwing, not Starscream. If that is, in fact, true, then they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to G1 accuracy. So, again, I'm waiting to see how this pans out.
But they did it for B, didn't they? Like, he's not bang on G1, but he's looking pretty similar. And
I'd say he looks a lot like Goldbug.
Yeah,
I reckon.
He's from a sort of IDW style G1B, like with the Volkswagen on the chest. And then apparently Prime. If we look, there was the concept art of Prime where he looks like really G1. And then
they've done the upscale and the alterations to the Age of Extinction, the evasion mode Prime, and G1 it up, and that's getting released in the Studio series.
Like that's
with
got the
packaging
straight, G1 colors as well. So how much Travis Knight's been talking about, what he wants to do with this. I'm fairly optimistic that we're going to have some.
I'm going to predict that we'll see some Tetrajets, because when I first heard about this, they had a picture of the Tetrajet Seekers from Cybertron from the G1 cartoon alongside it. So so that would be a nice little nod to G1. Yeah, hopefully, a Soundwave light post, that would be great.
If this is in the movie, it'd be one of those things where it's basically just sort of, a love letter to franchise, where it's like, look, hey, you remember all these characters that have been short-shrifted for the past 5 movies? Bang, they're all on screen doing what you remember them doing, and they all look like how you remember them looking.
Yeah.
It's pure fan service, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. Grain of salt.
I'm definitely going to see the movie anyway, so, I'm hoping high, but, I'm going to see it anyway. So all of this speculation, as far as I'm concerned, it will sort itself out when I'm sitting in the cinema. So.
Yeah. All right. Run sheet up. I suppose one little discussion I wanted to have. I'm going to put some photos up during the week. Toy packaging. Anyone keep the packaging? I know as collectors, stuff like your Masterpiece and Third Party, you're going to keep the boxes. Like this last week and a half, trying to sell some of your Masterpiece figures that haven't had their packaging has been a bit of a pain. More so, that was just because of the sales. And my collection isn't a collector's collection. My collection's just having representations of the character. I've talked about it before with my G1, and most of my G1 stuff's broken or missing pieces, but I've got the basic character there as a representation and haven't got boxes for most of it. But going through my shed last week, I've got about 20 or 30 of those 50-litre plastic tubs you get from Bunnings. And I didn't realise how bad it was, but there's Voyager boxes from the '07 movie and Revenge of the Fallen. And I remember a couple of years ago when the shed got full from buying, I think it was from Age of Extinction when the shed got full, I went back and all your carded stuff, I took the bubbles off them and just kept the card backs. Fall of Cybertron, Animated, Prime, all that stuff that you got deluxe net on cards. Just kept the card back so you got
if it was a particularly cool piece of artwork, I'd just cut them doing that for a while. Cut the artwork off the box and chuck the blister and the rest of it away.
Yeah. But see, even looking there, I've got Generations Jetfire, the Frill and 30 Jetfire. There's 2 boxes in there. I must have brought a second Jetfire somewhere. It's like, why the hell have I got this? This is before it went to the reject shop for $20. Like, there's no collecting aspect to it at all. It's pure hoarding, and I'm over it.
Yeah.
So
I've been slowly culling all the boxes that I have, just one gone.
Yeah. Unless it's sort of like a character I like the animated Grimlock. I like the character, I like the design, and I just kept the box just as a representation of what the box for Grimlock looked like when it come out. It's getting hard nowadays too, because you can just Google it. You don't like even a lot of the figures you might have in storage. Honestly, you take a photo of it and you put it in storage. Well, you can still Google the photo. So what's the point of having it in storage if you're not going to display it? But that's a little bit different.
I have about 3 wardrobes full of just piled high with boxes, and I generally only keep like the third party or particularly expensive stuff. But really, I guess there's a bit of a hoarding aspect to it, but I honestly just do it for resale. It's quite a lot easier to resell a transformer of any kind if you've got the box, you've got the instructions, and all the little bits and doodads. It's not like essential. I mean, I sell a lot of stuff out of box as well, but I just find it's a lot quicker, a lot easier, and it just creates a little bit more appeal for the purchase if you're trying to sell something that you've got everything that it came with. So,
and even shipping, like when I sold my Takara Combinables Bruticus, the buyer didn't want the box, even though the box is great. It's got that open up front on it that you can have all the stuff in there displayed, but he just to save that $20 or $30, we didn't ship it in the box. It all got shipped loose in bubble wrap. So you also get sometimes like that. Now I've got a Bruticus box in the cupboard with, I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, stuff like your masterpiece, your collector's pieces, then yeah, fair enough. You're gonna keep the box. Like you're not gonna. I've seen some people advertising masterpiece boxes on the BST group, and that's fair enough. That's their decision, but. It's
There's a big market for G1 boxes in good condition.
Well, and that might be sort of the bit of the mentality coming through where when you're young, you've got figures, you threw the box. Box was the first thing to go away, and now there's a shortage of
or get ripped open unceremoniously.
yeah. But now it's sort of it's like buying stuff and keeping it in package. The stuff at retail. At Nerdmania the other day, I had a lady and said, "What's your rarest piece here?" And I said, "Well, they're not really rare. Everything now, like I could sell everything now. And if the price is right, I could sell it because everything now that I had on display there, I could go out and buy again. The only thing that'd probably be the hardest to get or the most expensive to get is the reissue of the Fort Max I had there, just because now shipping and the dollar's not as good as what it was when I brought it from BBTS and that back when it come out and." It'd be the hardest one to get, but everything else, all your Titans, all that stuff, even the third party and the masterpiece stuff, you can still buy it all. And that's why I went through last day and just going, right, you're going and made a list and started advertising a heap of stuff because I've got my shed out there that it's now 6 years deep into its construction. I still haven't got it ready to have a display in it, yet I'm still buying figures that I've got no more room. The missus has got the shits because there's wardrobes and that, as you said, before yourself, Chris, there's wardrobes with boxes in it for masterpiece figures that it's taking up space and I can't do it anymore. I've got to get this shed finished. I need the money.
I think what a lot of collectors don't realise, and I know that Jared, the new Queensland rep, he's going to be facing this problem soon because I recently faced it. When you're somewhere where you can't put your collection on display, and you're still an active collector, it's very easy to fall into the trap of going, oh yeah, I want this guy, I'll get him. Oh yeah, I want that guy, I'll get him. And every week buying more and more bots. When I moved from my old place to this one and I could finally set up my displays where I wanted, I suddenly realized I had shitloads of bots, so many that there's no way I could ever, if I had a whole room in this house, I couldn't have displayed them all in the way that I wanted to. And I went through, after setting up here, I went through a couple of weeks of just completely downsizing my collection and getting rid of bots that I bought because I thought I wanted at the time and I thought they looked cool. But when it comes to actually putting them up on display and the whole purpose of buying them, I realized that they just didn't fit in with my collection, or they didn't look good on display, or I had nowhere to put them. So I think that's another reason why I ended up keeping boxes as well, is because when it came to that, sometimes I'd have basically a brand new open once figure that I thought I'd need or want on my collection. And when it came down to it, I was like, nope, he's going back in the box. Who wants this guy?
Yeah. And
So
that sort of goes back to the whole. Yes, some people do have the ability and the space to have their entire collection out on display, like ex-host Bill. His display he had. Cade's got a heap here locally. Even looking at what Griffin's got, like it's good to have that, but trying to do that yourself, unless you have the space and have the ability to display all your collection like that, most of it's going in storage. And why are you buying figures to build a collection if you're not going to display them or what have you? Like, as I said, as we were saying with the Megatron before, like one thing that sort of drives you to buy everything that comes out is because most, especially third party, once that initial release is done, you only got to go back to sort of like Quakewave and that. When Quakewave run was done, all of a sudden it was on eBay for $1,000 because they weren't making any more of them, and the aftermarket was stupid. Even MP36 sort of done that a little bit once it finished its run, but then the KO and the reissue sort of were announced and it sort of settled down a bit more. But
yeah, and there's the companies that, take MMC for example. I found it very difficult to get my hands on a culture or their Tarn, just because it was such a popular character. They only made a certain amount of them, and everybody who'd bought one had no interest in selling them because it was such a great figure, and MMC had no plans to re-release it or reissue it or anything. So, that can make it very difficult to get your hands on a release because, and when I got him, I actually bought him off John Ryan, and that was purely because John Ryan eliminated the third-party stuff from his collection. So I was lucky, but again, I got the box. I got all the, the comic and the instructions and all that came with it, and that went straight in the cupboard. I was like, I'm not getting rid of that, So there's that aspect to it as well.
Yep. Max, enough of that before we get to new acquisitions. We're starting to go long.
There's not much, basically, like what I said earlier. Just keep high end stuff. And stuff that I think I might need to sell down the track. Beyond that, try and get rid of as much as I can because it's also kind of a fire hazard.
Or you could have an avalanche when you open your cupboard and get crushed.
So much plastic.
I didn't think about it until last summer. I was putting shit in the attic, and I was like, "Hey, that box is sitting right on top of that light that in the kitchen, and that could actually burn the house down."
All right. Well, we just talked about not buying anything and everything, and time for some new acquisitions. Max.
I haven't been buying like everything and anything, but I did also, not be on for a few weeks and make a fair bit of money. So I bought a few things. Let's get off just this little one. Only Power of a Primes figure I have so far is Slash for little Legends Dinobot. Just really solid. Typical modern Legends figure, and one of the stronger ones out there, I'd say. Sort of really nice proportions where, like, she looks like a female proportion figure, but she doesn't have that typical, like really slim frame, massive chest type Transformers figure. It's, it looks more realistically proportioned. And actually it fits in with a Dinobot as well.
I recently, in the last few weeks, I got the Cindersaur, the repaint of that Max, and I don't know if you, but would you find that, strangely enough, I really like how small that figure is.
It does.
I don't
It
know
feels
why, but
smaller
I
than
like the
a lot of
fact
other
that it's so
Legends.
tiny.
Yeah, I quite
Yeah,
like it.
it's, I don't know, it just creates a weird aesthetic appeal to me for some reason. I just like the fact that it's this tiny little dinosaur
I
thing,
think also like a lot of
But
the Legends
yeah,
figures are quite squat, whereas this one's, it's
yeah.
the same size, but it's a lot slimmer. And
The dinosaur mode is really impressive, I think.
yeah, it does very little to accomplish quite a bit. Just some clever
Yeah,
use of mass.
yeah. And even details like the dinosaur's mouth, the jaw opening and closing, and it's just, yeah, I was very impressed by it.
yeah, and like the on the dinosaur head, like just like on the classic Dinobots, where it has that translucent plastic over the gold. Oh, that's just such an
Yeah,
awesome
yeah.
little detail. I love. And then sort of staying on the little figures, it's Iron Factory's Warpath.
There he is.
Oh, nice.
It's just Iron Factory. They make tiny little figures, but they're super solid. This guy, he does parts form a little bit, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. But beyond that, he's one of their better releases. Like not quite up there with the Seekers, but beyond that, I'd say it's probably the best thing of theirs that I've owned.
Yep.
It's a really
He seems to. Have you played the War for Cybertron games,
Yeah,
Max?
you reckon he carries over
Because
that?
from what I've seen, he seems. Yeah, he seems to be very close modeled on that
He's got the
that
same sort of
Cybertron
stature.
Warpath.
Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
proportionally. I
Do you
totally get
find
that.
because his
He's not a
Iron
G1
Factory?
math at all.
Do you find? Yeah, yeah. But do you find, because Warpath has always been traditionally like one of the smaller robots, Iron Factory, he could go in with a standard sort of chug size collection as
I don't know.
himself. Does that make sense?
I always saw. I mean, I guess he could if he's a mini bot, but like, I always saw Warpath as like just a fully sized character that just happened to be one of the G1 mini bots.
Yeah.
Like, cause
Yeah,
in a lot of
and
later media,
and that's essentially what they did with him in the games.
Yeah, like in later media, he'll be like the same size as Prime or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like, just as a little figure, he's got that sort of insanely solid build quality that Iron Factory always does. Whereas sometimes it feels a little too tight, but it's like hard to transform him. But that is
You're a big fan of the Iron Factory line, aren't you, Max?
Yeah, I love all that little legend stuff. Just because, I mean, the amount they can pack in at such a small space. Like I've got a massive just flock of Seekers on top of the shelf there.
Yeah, and we were just talking before about having a massive collection where the Iron Factor, even an inner legend scale stuff, you can have it small and you can have a whole cast or a whole wave release or whatever and not take up a lot of space.
Yeah, at this point you can have that as like in different aesthetics as well and a comprehensive collection just from the Legends figures.
And most of them under $50 each. Like that's what I was talking like last week when I brought the turn that off. Like the little Soundwave, a little Shockwave and that, and even Dutch, the DX9's Prime. Like having little guys like this, I'd much prefer to spend $50 on this than any of the current Voyagers that are out there. Like
I think they pack in more than a Voyager. Which is crazy to me.
Yep. So
they're almost like miniatures, some of them, in terms of quality and detail. Like it's fantastic. I'm actually planning. Is it Iron Factory who are doing the DJD combiner, Max?
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to like sell off my MMC ones to get those because They look so
Well,
good.
I'm planning to get them because of the fact that even though with my Chug collection, it's a scale problem having traditionally bigger characters in Legends scale. But when you combine them, because it is a Legends combiner, the big combiner that they turn into actually turns out to be about Voyager sized anyway. So I'm actually pretty keen to get my hands on that one.
Yeah, you see that sort of thing with that Bruticus, which they just did as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing looks fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that transforms because it looks to be, done in a really different sort of style to previous combiners.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find the combiner that they've teased so far just looks like a really big, mean, exaggerated Tarn, which I'm very interested in. So,
I'll just see how the color separation turns out on that, just because of the way it's going to transform.
yeah, that's it. Because there is such a varied color palette between the DJD. So, yeah,
because
be interesting to see how they pull it off.
it could be fantastic. Moving up in size. Second class is little Hearts of Steel
Oh,
by Hot Soldiers.
nice.
I thought this was going to be
That
like
is
a Legends
wicked.
figure, but he's the size of a small deluxe. And
Okay, it's a bit bigger.
Cool.
it's like $40 for a third-party deluxe class figure, which is pretty decent. Unfortunately,
I love how his
paint
hammer's one of
not-
those like railway mallets.
Yeah, like he turns into like an old-timey like locomotive, like not a real one, but a realistic-looking one. And then yeah, unfortunately, the plastic isn't the greatest in the world. Feels a little bit brittle. Like it's not bad or anything, but it's not quite up to like official Hasbro standards as well. But in terms of what he, in terms of what he does, the transformation does a whole lot of cool tricks, but is like really tightly compacted. Like getting the arms to pass through the torso around to the top of the legs is a bit of a nightmare and stuff like that. But he makes up for it in just having this stupid amount of posability. Like he's got all your standard stuff like shoulders, knees, whatever. This has got like a toe joint, ankle tilts, and a friggin' ab crunch. I like a figure this size. It blew my mind when I got to messing around with that. See, he's very
And $40, man. That's great.
The funny thing about this is, in the comics, this was a stupid thing they did the other way. So they retconned it. So they said, "Oh, the Hearts of Steel characters were actually not. They were actually in the main IDW universe. They were just different characters." So it's like, "Oh, the guy that you thought was Bumblebee is now called Centurion." And I'm like,
yeah,
whatever. And then the package
in much the same way that they put Beast Wars Waspinator into the G1 universe. Yeah.
But like this guy, his third-party name is Centurion. And I'm like, that's a bit cheap.
Right.
It's like when Mind Factories and Seekers, I think at least one of them, they just used the name of a different Seeker on the box. Gotta make an effort at least. And then sort of a bit bigger and a bit more expensive for the last thing. But I recall a little while ago, I bought an MP36 and then I have since sold it because the QC wasn't the greatest thing in the world. Instead, I picked up the Infinite Transformation version.
So you went from one to the other.
Yeah, I went from the official to the KO. And he's still not quite perfect, I'm sorry to say. Like, the joints aren't the most fantastic thing in the world. But on the whole, he is better than the official one, and he also cost me half as much. So I'm quite happy with that. So he's
awesome. Is there a size difference with that KO, or is he?
He's just a straight one-to-one knockoff. But what they did was they sort of cast him in a better plastic, so they didn't need to paint it, and so now his paint doesn't scratch. They added a panel for the back here, so that's a little gappy. The joints are generally a lot tighter, so on the official one, this elbow would just flop on me, and now it's rock solid.
Wow, KOs are getting crazy now, man.
Yeah, and I'm quite happy with that, and I paid for the original one, so there's no amorality about that. I paid for it. It wasn't the greatest thing in the world. This is still not perfect, but I am much happier.
Mm-hmm.
Was it cheaper?
Yeah, it cost me like $120 posted. So I was real happy with that.
Oh, that's all right.
As opposed to the official,
Yeah.
which cost me $260.
Have you had it in gun mode yet?
Yeah, gun mode is basically just the same, except the paint doesn't fall off.
I was going to say you've had the barrel extension on, and it's worked a lot better.
Yeah, there's no paint chipping whatsoever. It's fantastic.
Very good, very
Awesome.
good. Chris,
Happy?
what's
Yeah, so I've always got new acquisitions coming in. As I briefly mentioned, I got the Cindersaw, which is the Decepticon repaint of the Power of the Primes Slash, which, you know, it's good that Max showed us his because it's the same thing. It's just purple. Also, I managed to run out and get all the Decepticon Prime Masters, which I'm really enjoying. I love the nod to the G1 Pretenders there. So, as far as the Decepticon ones go, I've got the Bludgeon, the Octopunch, which is great to see an Octopunch, another Mayhem Attack Squad member we haven't seen for a long time. Bombburst, Skullgrin, and Submarauder. And I had the Submarauder Pretender as a kid, so I have pretty nostalgic ties to that one. But yeah, what I wanted to show you guys today was, beyond that, I also got the knockoff reflector pack that Simon showed us a couple of weeks ago. Not Simon, sorry, Jason showed us a couple of weeks ago. Which I can't remember what they KO'd from, but it was a triple reflector pack by a KO company called Papa Toys. That was pretty cool. Very much worth the $40 that I paid for it. So just to start off, so I'm currently working on basically building
What is
my
going on
own
here?
Galvatronus. Yeah, so I originally had him with the limbs for G2 Bruticus, but I've got now on him. I've got 2 pair of the Prime Dreadwinds, which really work well as his arms. As you can see, the purple on the Dreadwinds matches the Galvatronus torso exactly. I've got a Titan's Return Galvatron's on it, which perfectly just works so well. So he's a work in progress. Really, all I need to complete him is I want to get 2 pair of the Primes Dark Wings to have as the legs, just the whole aesthetic off. I'll be really pleased when I'm finished with him. He's actually one of the most fun projects I've had as a collector for a very long time. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for the end product of that. I think he's looking pretty cool so far. He's just doing a bit of a Lieutenant Dan at the moment, so I have to have him sitting on it. But the thing that really excited me, I've been chasing this guy since I started collecting. Well, not since I started, but since I started seriously going after the big official combiner sets and stuff like that. But I managed to score a Takara Unite Warriors Grand Galvatron set. Very hard to lay hands on. I've fought long and hard to get myself one of these, and I'm not disappointed. So basically, with the Hasbro version, they only released Cyclonus as the torso for Galvatronus, and you're sort of supposed to build up your own limbs out of whoever you like, really. It doesn't really matter. Whereas the Grand Galvatron set actually comes as a dedicated set. The main torso part has actually been repainted to resemble the original G1 Galvatron toy, which I thought was very cool. But the real appeal to this is the team or the limbs as a set.
Yeah.
So there's some really unique characters at the limbs. So you've got Ghost Starscream as the arm there, which is very cool. So he's got that clear translucent stick. what aerial bot he was based on mold-wise. But we also have Armada Thrust making up the other arm. So obviously the Thrust that was a slave of Unicron from the Armada cartoon series. The main torso is made up of a Cyclonus repaint, and I must say the Cyclonus repaint for the Kara one, it looks incredible. It's basically color-wise, just totally G1 accurate. Even more so than I've got quite a few different versions of Cyclonus in my Chug collection, and it's by far the closest to anything we've seen so far for G1 accuracy. The bottom part is a very strange addition. It's actually, you can see there he's got an Autobot symbol. He's actually called Wandering Roller. The backstory for him being he is Roller as Optimus Prime's trailer boy from another universe where Optimus was killed, and Roller sort of went crazy and got possessed by Unicron. So for whatever reason, he's so as you can see, he's the Rook repaint there. And Zombie War Breakdown making up the other leg. He's a tribute to in Prime when Breakdown was killed and brought back as a Dark Energon zombie. So for him, they've used the off-road / Ironhide mold to be more in line with his Prime truck mode, as opposed to the Combiner Wars Breakdown for the Menasor set, which is traditional Lamborghini. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this one. I mean, he looks like a nightmare, but I kind of like that about him. He's I don't know. There's something really appealing about the really creative use of characters to make up the team. He's a totally new combiner with a totally new team, but he just fits right in that Combiner Wars universe of just unique characters like Menasor and Devastator and that. But yeah, and being Takara, there's just that jump in quality and attention and caretaking with paint and use of different features and stuff, like even things like it's got the same arm cannon that comes with Superion and Galvatronus, but they've molded the actual cannon in that sort of clear orange plastic to be more like his Galvatron's G1 cannon. So yeah, so given my sort of Unicron Galvatron themed collection going with, these are my two big new projects, or he is anyway, at the moment, and they look bloody good next to each other. So yeah, yeah, if you can manage to get your hands on a Grand Galvatron, I would totally recommend it, but it is very difficult to find and quite expensive. I paid $250 for this, so
yeah. Well, that's what you got to pay. They're hard to get.
Yeah, that's it. So, but well worth it if you're a fan. So yeah, that's my new baby at the moment.
Babies. Yeah, let's talk about another one, shall we? Masterpiece Dinobot. Now he's in packaging mode because I haven't been able to get him out and play a lot with him, but just the weight of this figure, like I know where the price is. It feels so heavy. It's probably one of the heavier. I reckon it'd be heavier than Magnus. Well, Citizens. Wow. Anyway, we won't go into MP Magnus because I won't own it. But just when I got it out of the box and just stupid sun outside is not going to let me do it. But just the sculpt when I got him out of the box, and even it's got the little change the eyes gimmick in the head like some of the Masterpiece does, so you get more of a scowl out of him.
Cool.
By the way, the tongue did work. Yeah, it's got like the tongue in his mouth as well. Like just as a Dino mode, and his alt mode looks fantastic. I haven't transformed yet because I have a problem. My Primal and my Cheetor are in Beast mode. It's the reverse, except for the Dinobots. It's reverse where all my MPs are in bot mode. I don't know if I'm going to display them in beast mode or alt mode, so I don't know if I'm even going to transform this ever.
Hold on, you can't not transform that. Have you seen the transformation
Yeah,
yet?
come
I
on,
know,
man.
but I've also heard stories of people breaking things because they're too forceful with it. Even the whole reason his tail's not attached, I just had it on then, is because this whole back panel lifts up. When I first got out of the box, it was only because I've seen on one of the instructions it's facing out of the packaging that this panel lifts up, and I've been trying for a little while to get this panel to lift up and feel like I'm putting too much force into it to get it to move. Now I've loosened it up and it's popped up, but
just Google what you need to do to not break it.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
I'll definitely be
can't-
watching a review. Like, I never take the Masterpiece instructions out of the wrapping anyway. They
You've
stay in
gotta
there, but
get the friggin'. You got to be able to appreciate the
yeah, I know.
transformation on that.
Even like the accessories, like the little heads, it comes with 3 different little heads, and this one's got like a movable face or mouth on it.
Oh, that is cool.
And it's not gonna.
That's it. That's awesome.
It's not gonna do it. Come on. I think a bird flew through the window or something and darkened a little bit. But even like the little serrated teeth he's got, it's just fantastic. Like, there's 3 faces. There's him. There's another one that's got again like the scowling, like the eyes, more focused eyes, and again the jaws open and close. And then you've got the one that's got the clear eyes for the LEDs and the beams out of his eyes. But
the laser beams. Yeah.
As soon as I got this out of the packaging, I was sold, and that's why I went straight on to pre-ordering that Megatron. It's fantastic.
It's got so much cartoon accuracy. It's like on a new level, I reckon.
And like we'll talk before with Megatron, like, yeah, you got a bit of the robot stuff, and you got some of this, which, unless you're going to have a big shell former, you're going to have panels and stuff like that. So I can sort of look around it and look past it a little bit. But just the detail, like you'd never, just how sharp the teeth are, you'd never have that on a retail, like kids figure, like a Grimlock or anything. The claws are pointy and proper claws, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Take some photos, but even like he's wrapped his claw on his feet and that, like he's got a lot of pointy bits, and it's just fantastic. And there goes his tail.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah, so I'm definitely happy. With that.
Are you happy considering the price? Would you say, even though it was quite expensive, that it was worth it though? Like the happiness factor accounts for the high price?
I've purchased figures on price. I've purchased figures on design before. I think, as you were saying before, Megatron's like there's no other versions in the market, and I've talked before, both in chat and in the group, where if someone was making a 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, even Masterpiece scaled line of non-posable G1 styled statues or something, you didn't have to worry about paying for the transformation or that, I'd go that, because I've never transformed my MP10. A lot of the figures, I'll transform them once when I get them to take photos, and that's how they stay for their life. It's just, I'm not one that, it's not so much enjoying the transformation. So I don't see the need to transform it back and forth. And that's more of just having my son with retail figures, where retail figures just do not hold up to transformations. Ball joints get loose and just all that sort of stuff. So, and it's like Dinobot as well. Like, yes, his dinosaur mode looks good, but that bot mode is what looks fantastic, and that's going to, and with Megatron as well being in bot mode, whether the cons are in, the Predacons are in bot mode and the Maximals are in beast mode, I'll just have to work that out. But it's the whole reason he's here in the box. Like, yes, we got delayed last week and couldn't talk about him, and wanted to show off Dino mode, because once I go to bot mode, he'll probably never go back into Dino mode. But yeah, it's just one of those things, whether to keep him in what mode, and is that going to affect how I display Primal and Cheetor as well. But even the generations
I think
stuff,
you're going
like
to have to do robot mode.
Yeah, the Black Arachnia, the Rhinox, the Rat Trap, and all that come out with generations. I've got all them in bot mode, so might be just time to, because I haven't transformed Primal or Cheetor yet either. They've been, as they've come out of their packaging, so it might be time. Not that I have any.
Primal and Dinobot, at least I've heard no end of good things about.
Yeah. So, and not being in alt mode, you get away from sort of some of those corners have had to cut just to get the Dino mode or the Beast mode. So I think I've made up my mind. That'll go into bot mode.
I think it's situational though. Like, I've got you know, because I've got an army of sweeps. I don't know if you can see them there, probably not. Army of sweeps behind me for my Unicron display. I've got the ones up the front in robot mode, but I've got sweeps in sweep mode, like flying behind them. And I think depending on how you want to display, sometimes you can have that healthy mix of you know, alt modes with robot modes, depending on what the character is, what you're doing with your display and stuff. So it might come down to when you set up your shelves and stuff, you might have a different idea on to display them, you know.
Yeah, and that's one of the good stuff, or good things about the War in Pocket and the Legend scale figures. Like I've got me War in Pocket Seekers all in the jet modes around the MP Seekers, just because they're good looking jets. They're good looking jet modes, and it's sort of that comparison where you can have one thing. You're not buying two of each because you can have one in bot and one in alt mode. That a lot of people done early on before they realise that there's not enough money in the world to do that. No, that's good. I've got another figure out there, but I'll talk about that next week. So briefly,
Can I say it's nice to see you with your acquisition though for a change, Brad. It's been a while.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing too. Work the way it is, just the disposable income's gone. So whatever money I've got at the moment is going to fuel and trying to get this shed finished so I can, because I've been passing up on displays and all that to house figures just because I've got nowhere to put them and all that awesome stuff. So time moves on though. Just some TCA business briefly. We had the AGM today, so the new committee's been sworn in, and that's been announced on the Facebook group and on the website at transformerscca.com. As you're saying before, Chris, with Jared being the Queensland rep, we've got the other reps on there. If you want to talk about something, have an event, we've had a few people come forward with local events that are in their area, but it's not near a major city, so of course the reps aren't going to be able to get there. But if there's something on, let us know. We want to get some sort of calendar made up of all the events that are on during the year and see what we can get to. This one's sort of, I think it's in Mackay. It's like a school event where they get kids and do sort of like a fete, and they have people there for collections and that. We know we've got a few people up in that area, so we might be able to organise to get a couple of people there and display some stuff. So reach out to your local rep and have a chat to them. That's what we're here for. We're here to represent you and put your views forward and see what we can do. But we also had the July giveaway for the first, for the members. There was 103 that signed up in July, so one of them got one of those Iron Factory Warpaths, and another one got the Ultra Magnus, so they're both happy with them. And as we addressed at the front of the show, we just had the election, so that's all good. Outro, thanks for listening. Further information on Transformers Collectors Club Australia and everything we do is over at transformerscca.com, or you can find the edited version of this show and its podcast form over at transformersweekly.podbean.com. So, Chris, thanks for coming back on, Mr. Vice President.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, it's good to be back, and look forward to another exciting year with the TCCA.
Yep. Max, we didn't mention it earlier, but you're back as South Australia rep as well, so welcome back.
So
We got some events planned.
I've been doing.
Yep.
Yeah, we're already looking at. We're already booked in for the Comic and Toy Fair on the 1st of October.
Yep.
And definitely going to look at doing more stuff beyond that.
Yep, fantastic. So, yep, stay tuned to the website. We're going to get some stuff happening over there shortly, and yeah, here's to a good 2018-19. But until next week, guys, I'll see you later.
I know. Catch you later.
See ya.